The emergency beacon pierced through the void of space, its desperate signal carrying across light years to reach the most unlikely of recipients. Commander Zephi of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union frantically adjusted the communications array aboard his dying vessel, watching as his crew fell one by one to the brutal assault of the Vorthak hegemony. The Vorthak had come without warning, their massive dreadnoughts emerging from hyperspace like harbingers of death itself. Their crimson hulls bore the scars of 1,000 conquered worlds, and their weapons systems hummed with the energy of civilizations stripped bare for resources. Zephi's exploration vessel, the Harmony's Dream, had been conducting routine surveys of the outer rim when the attack began. "Sir, hull breach on decks 4 through 7, reported his tactical officer, her blue-scale hands trembling as she worked the controls. "We've lost life support in the aft sections." Zephi's 4 eyes darted across the tactical display, watching helplessly as more Vorthak vessels materialized around them. The Peacekeeping Union had protocols for situations like this, but none of them seemed adequate when facing an enemy that showed no interest in negotiation or mercy. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers, but this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something far worse. The ship shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. Zephi could hear the dying screams of his crew echoing through the corridors, could smell the acrid smoke of burning electronics, and worse things. His navigator, a young Kethlari named Silweth, looked at him with eyes wide with terror. "Commander, we need to evacuate. The engine core is destabilizing," she whispered, her tentacle-like appendages curling in distress. But Zephi knew there was nowhere to run. The escape pods would be easy targets for the Vorthak fighters swarming around their ship like angry insects. He had seen what the Vorthak did to prisoners. Death would be a mercy compared to what awaited them in the slave pits of Vorthak Prime. "Send a distress signal," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "All frequencies, maximum power." "Sir, there's no one out here." "The nearest Union fleet is 3 weeks away at best," his communications officer replied, her voice breaking. "Send it anyway. Someone might hear us." As his officer worked to broadcast their desperate plea for help, Zephi thought about his family back on Kethlara Prime. His mate and their 3 younglings would never know what happened to him. They would wait and wonder, hoping for a message that would never come. The bridge lights flickered as another explosion rocked the ship. Through the main view screen, Zephi could see the lead Vorthak dreadnought approaching, its weapon systems charging for what would surely be the killing blow. The massive vessel was scarred and ancient, its hull decorated with the preserved corpses of enemy commanders from countless battles. "Message sent, sir," the communications officer reported, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Zephi nodded grimly. At least they had tried. At least someone in the galaxy would know that the Vorthak had returned in force, that the peace they had all enjoyed for the past century was about to end in blood and fire. The Vorthak dreadnought fired. The beam of concentrated energy should have vaporized the Harmony's Dream instantly, but something impossible happened instead. The weapon's discharge struck an invisible barrier surrounding Zephi's ship, dispersing harmlessly into space in a shower of sparks and light. Every being on the bridge stared in stunned silence at the tactical display. The Vorthak weapons were firing continuously now, but none of their attacks were penetrating the mysterious shield that had appeared around them. "Commander," Silweth whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror, "look at the long-range sensors." Zephi activated the display and felt his heart skip a beat. Emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system was a fleet unlike anything in the galactic databases. The ships were massive, angular things that seemed to devour light itself. Their hulls were dark as the void between stars, marked only by strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Unknown vessels. This is Commander Zephi of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union." He broadcast on all frequencies. "Please identify yourselves." The response came in a language that no universal translator could decipher, harsh and guttural sounds that seemed to carry weight beyond mere words. But then, impossibly, the meaning became clear in Zeph-Hi's mind, as if the thoughts themselves were being transmitted directly into his consciousness. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. We receive your distress call. Stand down and prepare for rescue operations. The name meant nothing to Zeph-Hi, nor did the species designation. Terran was not in any galactic database he knew of. But as he watched the unknown fleet advance on the Vorthak forces, he felt something he had not experienced in cycles: hope. The lead ship in the Terran formation was larger than a Vorthak dreadnought, its hull bristling with weapon systems that defied easy classification. As it closed the distance to the enemy fleet, its weapons began to charge with an energy signature that made Zeph-Hi's instruments scream warnings. All Vorthak vessels, this is Admiral Chun, the alien voice announced across all frequencies. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. The Vorthak response was swift and predictable. The entire enemy fleet opened fire on the approaching Terran vessels, their combined firepower enough to sterilize a planet's surface. The weapon's discharge lit up space like a miniature star, the energy output so intense that Zeph-Hi had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, the Terran fleet remained untouched. Warning ignored, Admiral Chun announced, her voice carrying a cold finality that made Zeph-Hi's blood freeze. Weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten the innocent. What followed could barely be called a battle. The Terran ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons carving through Vorthak armor like it was made of paper. Ships that had terrorized entire sectors were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. The massive Vorthak dreadnought that had been preparing to execute Zeph-Hi found itself surrounded by smaller Terran vessels that danced around its weapons' fire like they were playing some deadly game. The dreadnought's destruction was almost artistic in its precision. The Terran ships fired in perfect synchronization, their weapons creating a web of energy that sliced the massive vessel into perfectly equal sections. The explosion that followed was contained within some kind of field, preventing debris from threatening nearby ships. In less than 10 minutes, an entire Vorthak raiding fleet had been completely annihilated. As Zeph-Hi watched in stunned silence, one of the smaller Terran vessels approached the Harmony's Dream. Its design was sleek and predatory, like something evolved for hunting in the deep void. A communication request appeared on his console. Commander Zeph-Hi, this is Captain Rodriguez of the TCS Retribution. We're going to dock with your vessel and provide medical assistance to your crew. Our scans indicate you have multiple casualties. Captain Rodriguez, Zeph-Hi replied, his voice shaking with emotion. We owe you our lives. But I must ask, what are Terrans? Your species is unknown to our databases. There was a pause before the response came, and Zeph-Hi thought he could hear something like grim amusement in the alien's voice. We're humans, Commander, and we're from a little planet called Earth. Most of the galaxy hasn't heard of us yet, but that's about to change. As the Terran ship docked with his vessel, and strange but clearly friendly beings began boarding to assist his crew, Zeph-Hi realized that this day would be remembered as a turning point in galactic history. The Vorthak had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, and the consequences would ripple across the stars for generations to come. The rescue had been the easy part. What came next would reshape the galaxy forever. The human medical team that boarded the Harmony's Dream moved with an efficiency that both impressed and unnerved Commander Zeph-Hi. They carried equipment he didn't recognize, devices that seemed to analyze and treat injuries with technology far beyond anything in the Galactic Union's databases. But it was their physical presence that truly amazed him. Captain Rodriguez was tall by galactic standards, her frame packed with dense muscle that spoke of evolution on a high-gravity world. Her skin was darker than the void of space, and her eyes held an intensity that reminded Zeph-Hi of the apex predators from his homeworld's ancient past. When she moved, it was with the fluid grace of something designed for violence. Yet her touch was gentle as she helped tend to his wounded crew. "Your people are going to be fine, Commander," she assured him, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested vocal cords evolved for more than just communication. Dr. Hassan is one of the best trauma specialists in the Colonial Defense Force. Dr. Hassan was examining Silweth, whose tentacle-like appendages had been severely burned by plasma discharge. The human doctor's hands were steady as she applied some kind of regenerative compound to the wounds, and Zephi watched in amazement as the damaged tissue began to heal at a rate that defied medical science. "Fascinating anatomy," Dr. Hassan murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "Neural pathways extend all the way to the extremities. In humans, this level of damage would require months of rehabilitation." "Humans?" Silweth whispered weakly. "I have never heard of your species in any of my xenobiology studies." Captain Rodriguez exchanged a look with her doctor, and Zephi caught something unspoken passing between them. There were secrets here, layers of information that these humans were not yet ready to share. "That's because we've been keeping to ourselves," Rodriguez explained carefully. "Earth is located in what your charts probably list as the Perseus Arm Dead Zone. Most galactic civilizations avoid that region because of the gravitational anomalies and radiation fields. But you survived there," Zephi observed. "Your technology, your physical capabilities. You evolved on a death world, didn't you?" The captain's smile was predatory and proud. "Class 12 Death World, according to galactic classification standards, though we prefer to call it home." Zephi felt his scales ripple with involuntary fear. Class 12 Death Worlds were theoretical constructs in galactic databases, planetary environments so hostile that complex life was considered impossible. The fact that not only had life evolved on such a world, but had developed spaceflight and advanced technology defied everything the Galactic Union believed about the nature of evolution itself. "How long had her people been space-capable?" he asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. "Officially? About 400 years. Unofficially, let's just say we've been watching the galaxy for longer than most civilizations have existed." The implications of this statement hit Zephi like a physical blow. 400 years was barely a moment in galactic terms. Yet these humans possessed technology that made Union science look primitive by comparison. What could they have accomplished if they had been expanding and developing for millennia? A new presence entered the medical bay, and every human in the room immediately came to attention. The newcomer was even more imposing than Captain Rodriguez, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with cybernetic implants that glowed with inner light. His left arm had been completely replaced with mechanical components that moved with inhuman precision, and his eyes held a coldness that made Zephi's blood freeze. "Commander Zephi," the cyborg said in a voice like grinding metal. "I am General Marcus Stone, commanding the Terran Expeditionary Force. I need to debrief you on the Vorthack attack." "Of course, General," Zephi replied, struggling to maintain his composure in the presence of this mechanical warrior. "Though I should warn you, our engagement was brief. We were completely outmatched." General Stone's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his cybernetic eyes. "Tell me everything. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it might seem." As Zephi recounted the attack, he noticed how the humans listened. They weren't just gathering information. They were analyzing it, processing each detail with the intensity of predators studying their prey. When he described the Vorthack weapons and tactics, he saw a recognition flash in their eyes. The Vorthack have been expanding their operations, General Stone concluded when Zephi finished his account. "Our intelligence suggested they were preparing for something bigger than simple raiding." "This confirms it. You have intelligence on the Vorthack?" Zephi asked, surprised. "But if you've been isolated..." "We said we kept to ourselves, Commander. We never said we weren't watching." Captain Rodriguez's smile was sharp as a blade. "Humanity has been tracking the movements of every major faction in this galaxy for over 2 centuries. We know about the Vorthack slave trade, the Krextar expansion, the Union's corruption problems, and the brewing civil war in the Helix Nebula. Zeph felt the world spinning around him. The idea that an unknown species had been observing galactic civilization for centuries without being detected was terrifying. What else did these humans know? What other secrets were they keeping? Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. Why break your isolation to save us? General Stone was quiet for a long moment, his cybernetic components whirring softly as he processed the question. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute certainty. Because the Vorthack have crossed a line. We've been content to watch from the shadows while the galaxy sorts out its own problems, but slavery and genocide are not acceptable. Not on our watch. But we're strangers to you, Silweth protested weakly from her medical bed. Why do you care what happens to species you've never even met? Dr. Hassan looked up from her instruments, her expression softening slightly. Because that's what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves, even if it costs us everything. It's not always logical, and it's certainly not always wise, but it's who we are. The Vorthack won't stop with border raids, General Stone continued, his voice carrying grim certainty. Our analysts predict they're preparing for a full-scale invasion of Union space. Millions of beings will die, and entire civilizations will be enslaved or exterminated. Zeph felt cold dread settling in his stomach. The Galactic Union's military forces were designed for peacekeeping, not warfare against a determined enemy. They had grown soft during the long peace, their weapons and tactics outdated by centuries of disuse. The Union Council needs to be warned, he said. If the Vorthack are planning something this massive, warnings won't be enough, Captain Rodriguez interrupted. We've seen the Union's military capabilities. With respect, Commander, your forces wouldn't last a week against a full Vorthack assault. The brutal honesty of her assessment stung, but Zeph knew she was right. The Union's exploration vessels like his own were barely armed, and even their dedicated warships were built for show rather than actual combat. They had been living in a fool's paradise, believing that diplomacy and good intentions could solve any conflict. Then, what do you propose? He asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. General Stone's cybernetic I word as it focused on him. We're going to war, Commander. The question is whether the Union will stand with us or get out of our way. Va? Zephai's voice cracked. But the casualties, the devastation, will be far less than if we allow the Vorthack to complete their preparations, Dr. Hassan said matter-of-factly as she finished treating Silweth. Sometimes violence is the only language that monsters understand. As if summoned by her words, Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All vessels, prepare for jump to hyperspace. We have multiple Vorthack fleet movements detected across the outer rim. The war has already begun. Zeph felt the deck plating vibrate as the human ships engaged their faster-than-light drives. Through the viewports, he could see space folding around them in ways that defied his understanding of physics. These humans didn't just possess advanced technology. They had rewritten the fundamental rules of space travel itself. Commander, General Stone said as he prepared to leave, I'm going to need you and your crew to serve as liaisons with Union Command. They need to understand what they're facing, and, more importantly, they need to understand who their new allies are. Allies, Zeph repeated, hope flickering in his chest. Humanity doesn't abandon its friends, Commander. And, as of today, the Galactic Union is under our protection. The general paused at the doorway, his mechanical form casting long shadows. I just hope your people are ready for what that means. As the humans departed to prepare for war, Zeph realized that his rescue had been more than just a chance encounter. It had been first contact with a species that would either save the galaxy or reshape it beyond recognition. The only question now was whether the civilizations they were trying to protect would survive the cure. The Union Council chambers on Centroplex Prime had never witnessed anything like the emergency session that convened 3 days after the Vorthack attack. Representatives from 47 different species packed the massive amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the universal translators struggled to process. At the center of it all sat Commander HFY, still recovering from his injuries but determined to deliver his report in person. High Counselor Veltar, an ancient Asheni whose crystalline body had witnessed the formation of the Union itself, called for order with a harmonic tone that resonated through the chamber. Her multifaceted eyes reflected the holographic displays showing the devastation across the Outer Rim, where 17 more Union vessels had fallen to Vorthack raids in just the past 48 hours. Commander HFY, she intoned, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. Your initial report speaks of unknown aliens who destroyed an entire Vorthack fleet. The Council requires clarification of these extraordinary claims. HFY rose on unsteady legs, acutely aware that the fate of billions might rest on his words. Honored counselors, I have brought with me evidence that will reshape our understanding of galactic civilization itself. He activated his personal holoprojector, filling the air above the chamber floor with tactical recordings from the battle. The assembled representatives gasped and chittered in their various languages as they watched the human fleet materialize from hyperspace with impossible speed and precision. The beings who rescued my crew call themselves humans, HFY continued, his voice growing stronger. They originate from a Class 12 death world designated as Earth, located in what we consider the Perseus Armed Dead Zone. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Counselor Tetrasisare of the Hegemony Coalition rose to her full 12-foot height, her insectoid features clicking with agitation. Impossible. Nothing can evolve on a Class 12 world, let alone achieve spaceflight. And yet they did, HFY replied, advancing the recording to show the destruction of the Vorthack dreadnought. Watch and see for yourselves what Deathworld evolution has wrought. The silence that followed the display was profound. Even the most warlike species in the Union had never witnessed such casual, efficient destruction. The human weapons had carved through Vorthack armor like it was constructed from gossamer, and their tactical coordination spoke of a military tradition that spanned millennia. Counselor Mordak of the Krextar Syndicate was the first to break the silence, his gravelly voice filled with suspicion. These recordings could be fabricated. Where's the proof that these humans actually exist? As if summoned by his words, every display screen in the chamber activated simultaneously. The image that appeared showed Admiral Sarah Chun standing on what was clearly the bridge of a warship, her uniform bearing insignia that no galactic database could identify. Honored members of the Galactic Union Council, she said, her voice transmitted with perfect clarity despite the lack of any communication request. I am Admiral Sarah Chun, representing the Terran Colonial Defense Force. We apologize for interrupting your proceedings, but current circumstances require immediate discussion. High Counselor Veltar's crystalline form flickered with shock. How are you transmitting to our secure chambers? Our communication networks are protected by quantum encryption. Admiral Chen's smile held no warmth. Your encryption is adequate for galactic standard technology, Counselor. However, human computer science evolved under rather more demanding circumstances. We needed unbreakable codes to coordinate resistance movements against our own artificial intelligences during the synthesis wars. The implications of her casual statement sent ripples of fear through the chamber. Any species that had fought and defeated their own artificial intelligences possessed technological capabilities that bordered on the godlike. What do you want from us? Counselor Veltar asked, her harmonic tones carrying undertones of barely controlled panic. Nothing, Admiral Chen replied. We are offering our assistance in the coming war against the Vorthack hegemony. Our intelligence indicates they are preparing for a full-scale invasion of Union space within the next galactic month. The Union has maintained peace for over a century through diplomacy and trade agreements. We do not wage war. Then you will all die, Admiral Chun stated with clinical detachment. The Vorthack do not negotiate. They do not compromise. They conquer, enslave, and consume. We have observed them for 200 years, and their pattern never varies. Observe them. High Counselor Veltar's form brightened with alarm. How long have you been watching us? Long enough to know that your civilization has grown complacent and weak, Admiral Chen replied without a trace of diplomacy. Your military forces are ceremonial at best. Your weapons systems are centuries out of date, and your strategic thinking has atrophied from lack of use. Against the Vorthak war machine, you would last approximately 3 weeks. The chamber erupted in outrage, with representatives shouting protests in dozens of languages. Through it all, Admiral Chun waited with the patience of a predator, her image never wavering on the screens. When the noise finally subsided, she continued as if nothing had happened. However, humanity has spent the last 4 centuries preparing for this war. We know the Vorthak strengths, their weaknesses, and their tactical doctrines. We have weapons and strategies designed specifically to counter their advantages. With our assistance, the Union can not only survive, but emerge victorious. And what would be the price of this assistance? Counselor Mordak asked, his reptilian eyes narrowing with suspicion. There is no price, Admiral Chen replied. Humanity does not charge for doing what is right. Nothing is free, Counselor Tetris Saray protested. Every species seeks advantage. What do humans gain from this conflict? Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment, her expression growing distant. When she spoke again, her voice carried echoes of old pain and older resolve. Counselor, humanity spent 3,000 years learning to survive on a world that actively tried to kill us every day. We faced ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that made our ancestors prey for millions of years. But the hardest lesson we learned was not how to fight the planet or the animals or even each other. She paused, her gaze seeming to focus on something far beyond the chamber walls. The hardest lesson was learning to fight ourselves. Our history is written in the blood of genocides, enslaved peoples, and civilizations that vanished because someone decided they didn't deserve to exist. It took us millennia to understand that our greatest enemy was not the death world that forged us, but the darkness within our own souls. The chamber had grown completely silent, every representative hanging on her words. We swore, as a species, that we would never again allow such horrors to be inflicted on intelligent beings. When we reached the stars and found a galaxy full of civilizations living in relative peace, we were content to watch and protect from the shadows. But slavery and genocide, her voice hardened to diamond. Those are lines that cannot be crossed. Not on our watch. Commander Zephi felt something stirring in his chest, an emotion he had never experienced before. It took him a moment to recognize it, as hope mixed with awe. These humans were not just powerful. They were righteous in a way that transcended mere moral philosophy. What would you require from us? High Counselor Veltar asked, her harmonic tones subdued. Cooperation, Admiral Chun replied simply. Access to your communication networks to coordinate defense strategies. Temporary basing rights for our fleets. And, most importantly, trust that we will honor our word to protect you. And if we refuse, Counselor Murdokot challenged. Admiral Chin's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the quality of light around her image. Then, we will respect your decision and withdraw. The Vorthak will complete their invasion, your civilizations will fall, and millions of beings will suffer fates worse than death. But that will be your choice to make. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a full minute. Finally, High Counselor Veltar spoke, her voice carrying the weight of decision. Admiral Chun, the Galactic Union formally requests military assistance from the Terran Colonial Defense Force in defense against Vorthak aggression. Request acknowledged and accepted, Admiral Chun replied. General Stone and the Expeditionary Force will arrive at Centroplex Prime within 24 hours to begin coordination. I suggest you use that time to prepare your people for what they're about to see. Her image vanished, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Commander HFY looked around at the assembled representatives and saw his own mixture of fear and hope reflected in their alien features. "Counselors," he said, his voice carrying across the vast space, "I have seen these humans in action. They are not like us. They are something forged in the fire of a world that should have destroyed them, tempered by wars that would have broken any other species. They are terrifying and magnificent and absolutely committed to protecting those who cannot protect themselves." He paused, remembering the gentle touch of Dr. Hassan as she healed his crew, the cold efficiency of General Stone's cybernetic enhancements, the predatory grace of Captain Rodriguez. They're exactly what we need to survive what's coming. As the Council began the complex process of preparing for humanity's arrival, none of them could imagine the changes that would sweep across the galaxy in the coming days. The war against the Vorthack would be terrible and brutal, but it would also mark the beginning of a new age. An age where Deathworlders walked among the stars as guardians and protectors, with a strong-stood shield before the weak, and where humanity's ancient promise would echo across the void. Never again would genocide go unanswered. The arrival of the human fleet at Centroplex Prime defied every expectation the Union had formed about their mysterious saviors. General Marcus Stone's flagship, the TCS Indomitable, emerged from hyperspace with 50 other vessels in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the light from the system's twin stars. But it was the scale of the fleet that truly stunned the assembled Union observers. Each human ship was massive beyond comprehension, dwarfing even the largest Union vessels like battleships beside rowboats. The Indomitable itself stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with weapon systems that made Union engineers weep with professional jealousy. And these were just the escort vessels. The true flagships, General Stone had informed them, were still in hyperspace, too large to safely enter a populated system. High Counselor Veltar stood in the observation deck of Centroplex Station, her crystalline form refracting the light from the approaching human fleet into rainbow patterns that betrayed her deep unease. Beside her, Commander HFY watched with a mixture of awe and terror that had become his constant companion since the rescue. "They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Silweth, whose injuries had healed completely thanks to human medical technology. "But they feel hungry, like predators waiting to be unleashed." HFY nodded grimly. The human ships moved with a fluid precision that spoke of crews who had trained for war their entire lives. Every maneuver was perfect, every formation seamless. These were not explorers or peacekeepers. These were weapons forged in the crucible of a death world, pointed at the heart of galactic civilization. The communication requests from Indomitable carried priority codes that somehow bypassed all of Centroplex Station's security protocols. General Stone's image appeared on every screen simultaneously, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the bridge lighting. "Centroplex Control, this is General Stone requesting immediate docking clearance for senior staff transport," his mechanical voice announced. "We have approximately 18 hours before the Vorthack Advance Fleet reaches Union space." High Counselor Veltar activated her personal communicator, her harmonic tones carrying undertones of barely controlled panic. "General Stone, our intelligence networks show no sign of Vorthack movement. How can you be certain of their timeline?" The general's expression didn't change, but his cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her image. "Because we've been monitoring their communications for the past 6 months, Counselor. The Vorthack use quantum-encrypted channels that they believe are unbreakable. They are mistaken." The implications of this casual statement sent shockwaves through every intelligence agency in Union space. If humans could break Vorthack encryption, what other impossible capabilities did they possess? "Docking clearance granted, General," High Counselor Veltar replied. "Bay 12 is being cleared for your arrival." "Negative, Counselor. Bay 12 cannot accommodate our transport. We'll be using Bay 1. Bay 1 was the massive cargo dock normally reserved for the largest Union freighters. The idea that these humans would need such a facility for a simple transport vehicle, spoke to the scale of everything in their civilization. 20 minutes later, the human transport docked with Centroplex Station, and the Union representatives got their first glimpse of humanity's true nature. The vessel was larger than most Union warships, its hull inscribed with battle honors from conflicts that predated galactic civilization. But it was the beings who emerged that truly captured everyone's attention. General Stone led a delegation of 12 humans, each one a masterpiece of evolutionary adaptation and technological enhancement. There was Colonel Alexander Petrov, whose entire left side had been replaced with combat prosthetics that hummed with barely contained energy. Major James' right wore powered armor that moved like a second skin, its systems interfacing directly with his nervous system through ports in his spine. Captain Li Wei's eyes had been replaced with cybernetic implants that could apparently see across multiple spectrums simultaneously. But it was the unmodified humans who were most impressive. They moved with the fluid grace of apex predators, their muscles coiled with potential energy that spoke of evolution on a world where weakness meant death. Their eyes held an alertness that never wavered, constantly scanning for threats and opportunities with an intensity that made other species nervous. Counselor Veltar, General Stone said as he approached the reception committee, "Thank you for agreeing to this emergency meeting. I wish we had more time for proper introductions, but the Vorthak have accelerated their timeline. How can you be so certain of their movements?" Commander HFY asked. "Our long-range sensors show nothing." Major Wright stepped forward, his powered armor's heads-up display casting blue light across his features. "Because we've been fighting this war for longer than your civilization has existed, Commander. The Vorthak follow predictable patterns. They probe defenses, identify weaknesses, and then strike with overwhelming force. The probe phase ended when they attacked your ship. But surely they need time to organize such a massive assault," protested Counselor Teatrice Saray, her mandibles clicking with agitation. Colonel Petrov's cybernetic arm whirred as she activated a holographic display. "The Vorthak have been organizing for decades, Counselor. Our deep space monitoring stations have tracked the assembly of over 3,000 warships in the void reaches beyond your sensor range. They're not coming to raid anymore. They're coming to conquer." The hologram showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with red markers indicating Vorthak fleet positions. The scope of the enemy buildup was staggering, representing more military power than the Union had ever imagined possible. 3,000 ships, High Counselor Veltar whispered, her harmonic tones cracking with despair. "The entire Union Defense Force has fewer than 200 vessels. And most of those are exploration ships with minimal armament," General Stone added matter-of-factly. "Against a determined Vorthak assault, they would be annihilated in hours. Then, we're doomed," Counselor Teatrice Cesare concluded, slumping in her chair. "Our civilization will end in fire and chains." "No," said a new voice from the transport's airlock. Admiral Sarah Chan emerged, flanked by two beings whose presence made the very air seem to thicken with menace. They were human, but enhanced far beyond anything the Union representatives had seen before. Their eyes glowed with inner light, their movements too quick and precise to be entirely natural. "Admiral," General Stone acknowledged with a respectful nod. "I thought you were remaining with the fleet." "Plans changed," she replied, her gaze sweeping across the assembled alien dignitaries. "The Vorthak have deployed their Reaper Corps. This is no longer a conventional invasion. They're planning to make an example of the Union that will terrify every civilization in the galaxy into submission." Dr. Silwetha's tentacles curled with involuntary fear. "Reaper Corps. Enhanced soldiers," Admiral Chin explained. "Cybernetic warriors designed specifically for terror operations. They don't just kill their enemies. They record the process and broadcast it across all communication networks to break the spirit of any potential resistance." "We've fought them before," said one of the Admiral's companions, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested vocal cords modified for more than speech. "During the Tau Ceti uprising." They turned an entire colony world into a monument to suffering. Commander HFY felt his scales ripple with horror. But you stopped them? The enhanced human smile was sharp as a razor. We didn't just stop them, Commander. We made them extinct. The Reaper core that's coming for you now is their third generation. We destroyed the first two so thoroughly that the Vorthack had to redesign them from scratch. How is such destruction even possible? High Counselor Veltar asked, her crystalline form pulsing with confused light patterns. Admiral Chun activated her own holographic display, showing tactical recordings from battles that defied comprehension. Human soldiers moved through Vorthack fortifications like living weapons, their enhanced capabilities allowing them to perform feats that bordered on the supernatural. Humans are natural weapon platforms. Counselor, she explained as the recording showed human warriors tearing through enemy ranks with impossible speed and precision. Our evolution on Earth required us to be adaptable, intelligent, and ruthlessly efficient at violence. But we took those natural gifts and enhanced them through technology, training, and genetic modification. We are no longer entirely human, the second companion added, his cybernetic implants pulsing with data streams. We are post-human, evolution guided by will rather than chance. The silence that followed this revelation was profound. The Union representatives stared at these beings who claimed to be the next step in human evolution, these warriors who had transcended their own species to become something new and terrifying. What do you need from us? High Counselor Veltar finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Complete authority over all Union military assets, Admiral Chun replied without hesitation. Unrestricted access to your communication networks, and the evacuation of all non-essential personnel from the border systems. You're asking us to surrender control of our own civilization, Counselor Tetris Saray protested. I'm asking you to trust us to save it, Admiral Chun corrected. The Vorthack Reaper Corps will be here within hours. When they arrive, they will find not helpless prey, but an enemy they are not prepared to face. They will find humans. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout Centroplex Station. The long-range sensor arrays had finally detected what human instruments had seen hours earlier. A massive fleet of Vorthack warships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. The war had begun. General Stone's cybernetic enhancements blazed with activity as he processed incoming data streams. All Union personnel are to evacuate to the inner system immediately. Admiral, shall I give the order? Admiral Chen's enhanced companions stepped forward, their inhuman grace making the other humans look clumsy by comparison. Send the signal to all Terran forces. Full deployment. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. And the Union fleet? Commander HFY asked. Admiral Chun turned to him, her eyes holding depths of experience that spanned centuries of warfare. High behind us, Commander. Watch and learn what happens when someone threatens those under humanity's protection. This is going to be educational. As the human delegation returned to their transport to rejoin their fleet, the Union representatives were left to contemplate the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. They had thought they were hiring mercenaries to help defend their civilization. Instead, they had awakened guardians who would reshape the galaxy to ensure that such a threat never arose again. The Battle of Centroplex Prime would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned what Deathworlders were truly capable of when their protective instincts were awakened. As the Vorthack Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect battle formation, their 3,000 warships blotting out the stars, every Union observer expected to witness the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. Instead, they witnessed its rebirth. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her enhanced senses processing data streams that would have overwhelmed unmodified humans. Around her, the ship's crew moved with the deadly efficiency of predators who had trained for this moment their entire lives. Every human vessel in the system had gone to full combat alert, their weapon systems charging with energies that made space itself ripple. Admiral, reported Captain Torres, her cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the ship's tactical systems. Vorthack fleet composition confirmed. 2,700 standard warships, 200 heavy dreadnoughts, and 100 Reaper core assault carriers. Acceptable odds, Admiral Chen replied, her voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who had fought impossible battles before. Signal the fleet. Battle Plan Omega is now in effect. On Centraplex Station, Commander HFY and the Union representatives watched through the observation deck's massive viewports as the human fleet began to move. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about naval warfare. The human ships didn't form traditional battle lines or defensive formations. Instead, they scattered across the system like a living entity, each vessel following movement patterns that seemed almost organic in their fluidity. What are they doing? High Counselor Veltar asked, her crystalline form flickering with confusion. They're breaking formation, exposing themselves to concentrated fire. No, Dr. Silweth whispered, her enhanced understanding of human biology suddenly, providing terrible clarity. They're hunting. Look at the pattern. It's a pack formation. She was right. The human ships moved like the apex predators their crews had evolved from, surrounding the Vorthack fleet in a complex three-dimensional web that left no escape route uncovered. Each vessel maintained perfect positioning relative to its packmates, ready to support or redirect as the tactical situation demanded. The Vorthack response was immediate and overwhelming. 3,000 ships opened fire simultaneously, their combined weapons discharge creating a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and exotic energy weapons filled the space around the human fleet with enough destructive power to vaporize small moons. When the weapons' fire faded, every human ship remained undamaged. Impossible. Counselor Tetrisisare breathed, her mandibles clicking with disbelief. No shields could withstand that level of concentrated fire. They're not using shields, Commander HFY realized, his tactical training finally making sense of what he was seeing. They're using some kind of spatial distortion technology. The weapon's fire is being redirected around them. On the indomitable S-Bridge, Admiral Chun allowed herself a predator's smile. The Vorthack always rely on brute force, thinking that enough firepower can solve any problem. They never learn to adapt their tactics. Admiral, Captain Torres reported, Vorthack fleet is beginning their second assault pattern. Reaper core carriers are moving to flanking positions. Signal Battle Group Alpha, Admiral Chun commanded. Time to show them what humans do to those who threaten the innocent. What followed could barely be called a battle. The human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons systems carving through Vorthack armor like it was made of paper. But it was their tactics that truly horrified the enemy. The humans didn't simply destroy their opponents. They dissected them with surgical precision, targeting specific systems to maximize psychological impact. Vorthack dreadnoughts found their weapon systems disabled, but their life support intact, forcing their crews to watch helplessly as their fleet mates were systematically annihilated. Reaper core carriers had their deployment bays sealed shut with precise energy welds, trapping their enhanced warriors inside their own ships as the vessels were carved apart around them. By the void, whispered General Crackstalk, the Vorthack fleet commander, as he watched his supposedly invincible armada being dismantled by fewer than 50 enemy ships. Were these monsters? His answer came in the form of Admiral Chen's voice, broadcast across all Vorthack communication channels in their own language. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. You have threatened those under our protection. Your fate was sealed the moment you chose to wage war against the innocent. Terrans, Crackstalk spat, his scarred features twisting with rage. Unknown primitives from some backwater world. We will add your bones to our trophy collections. You will try, Admiral Chun replied with clinical detachment. Captain Torres, execute Purification Protocol 7. The human fleet's formation shifted again, this time into something that resembled a closing fist. The remaining Vortex ships found themselves compressed into an ever-shrinking sphere of space, their escape routes cut off by human vessels that seemed to anticipate their every move. "This is impossible," Craxtalk snarled, his tactical displays showing the steady erosion of his forces. "No species could possess such tactical superiority. What are you? We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for 3 million years," Admiral Chen responded, her voice carrying the weight of evolutionary history. "We are the descendants of prey animals who learned to become the ultimate predators. We are the species that conquered our own planet, survived our own nuclear wars, and defeated our own artificial intelligences." A new group of human ships emerged from hyperspace, these ones different from the others. They were smaller, sleeker, and moved with an organic fluidity that suggested technology far beyond anything in the galactic databases. Their hulls bore markings and scripts that hurt to look at directly, symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when observed. "And these," Admiral Chun continued, "are our children, the next step in human evolution. Post-humans who have transcended the limitations of biology itself." The new arrivals wasted no time in joining the battle, their weapon systems unleashing energies that existed at the intersection of science and what could only be described as applied philosophy. Vortex ships didn't simply explode when hit by these weapons. They ceased to exist in ways that violated fundamental laws of physics. General Crackstock's flagship shuddered as one of the post-human vessels targeted its bridge with a weapon that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The general found himself face-to-face with a being that had once been human, but had evolved beyond such simple categorization. "You wanted to know what we are?" the post-human said, its voice carrying harmonics that bypassed audio processing and spoke directly to Crackstock's consciousness. "We are what happens when a species refuses to accept limitations. We are evolution-guided by will rather than chance. We are the inheritors of Earth's legacy of endless adaptation and relentless survival." The being paused, its form shifting through configurations that defied three-dimensional geometry. "But, most importantly, we are the guardians of those who cannot protect themselves. And you have threatened our charges." The post-human's weapon fired, and General Crackstock experienced a moment of perfect understanding about the true nature of humanity before his consciousness was dispersed across 17 different dimensions simultaneously. The remaining Vortex forces, witnessing the destruction of their command structure and the casual annihilation of their most powerful weapons, did something that had never happened in their species' history. They attempted to surrender. "Unknown vessels," Admiral Chen broadcast to the surviving Vortex ships, "you are no longer welcome in this galaxy. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal to extragalactic space. Any vessel remaining in Union territory after that deadline will be destroyed." "You cannot banish an entire species," protested one of the surviving Vortex captains. "Where would we go? How would we survive?" "That is no longer our concern," Admiral Chun replied with finality. "You chose to make war against the innocent. The consequences of that choice are yours to bear." As the shattered remnants of the Vortex armada fled toward the galactic rim, never to return, the human fleet regrouped around Centroplex Station. The battle that military historians had expected to last days or weeks had been concluded in less than 6 hours, with not a single human casualty. On the observation deck, the Union representatives stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Commander HFY was the first to find his voice. "Admiral Chun," he said as her image appeared on the communication screens, "what happens now? What happens to the Union, to our civilizations, to the galaxy itself?" Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly, revealing glimpses of the compassion that drove humanity's protective instincts. "What happens now, Commander, is that you rebuild. You learn. You grow stronger. And you remember that as long as humans walk among the stars, no force in this galaxy will be allowed to threaten the innocent." "But you've seen our weaknesses," High Counselor Veltar protested. "Our military inadequacies, our technological limitations. Surely you could simply conquer us yourselves. Conquest was never our goal, Counselor, Admiral Chen replied. We didn't reveal ourselves to rule over other species. We revealed ourselves to protect them. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to prosper, as long as we stand together against those who would see it burn. As the human fleet prepared to return to their hidden bases in the Perseus Arm, they left behind more than just the debris of a defeated enemy. They left behind a transformed galaxy, one where civilizations knew that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, guardians watched and waited. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human protection had begun. And in the years that followed, as the Union rebuilt its defenses with human guidance, and new species emerged to join the galactic community under humanity's watchful gaze, the story of the SOS that summoned the unstoppable Deathworlder fleets became legend. A legend that served as both warning and promise, threatened the innocent, and faced the wrath of Earth's children. But stand with them in defense of the weak and helpless, and know that you will never stand alone. The humans had answered the call. The galaxy would never be the same. The emergency beacon pierced through the void of space, its desperate signal carrying across light years to reach the most unlikely of recipients. Commander HFY of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union frantically adjusted the communications array aboard his dying vessel, watching as his crew fell one by one to the brutal assault of the Vorthack hegemony. The Vorthack had come without warning, their massive dreadnoughts emerging from hyperspace like harbingers of death itself. Their crimson hulls bore the scars of 1,000 conquered worlds, and their weapons systems hummed with the energy of civilization stripped bare for resources. HFY's exploration vessel, the Harmony's Dream, had been conducting routine surveys of the outer rim when the attack began. "Sir, hull breach on decks 4 through 7, reported his tactical officer, her blue-scaled hands trembling as she worked the controls. "We've lost life support in the aft sections." HFY's 4 eyes darted across the tactical display, watching helplessly as more Vorthack vessels materialized around them. The Peacekeeping Union had protocols for situations like this, but none of them seemed adequate when facing an enemy that showed no interest in negotiation or mercy. The Vorthack were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers, but this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something far worse. The ship shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. HFY could hear the dying screams of his crew echoing through the corridors, could smell the acrid smoke of burning electronics, and worse things. His navigator, a young Kethlari named Silweth, looked at him with eyes wide with terror. "Commander, we need to evacuate. The engine core is destabilizing," she whispered, her tentacle-like appendages curling in distress. But HFY knew there was nowhere to run. The escape pods would be easy targets for the Vorthack fighters swarming around their ship like angry insects. He had seen what the Vorthack did to prisoners. Death would be a mercy compared to what awaited them in the slave pits of Vorthack Prime. "Send a distress signal," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "All frequencies, maximum power." "Sir, there's no one out here. The nearest Union fleet is 3 weeks away at best," his communications officer replied, her voice breaking. "Send it anyway. Someone might hear us." As his officer worked to broadcast their desperate plea for help, HFY thought about his family back on Kethlara Prime. His mate and their 3 younglings would never know what happened to him. They would wait and wonder, hoping for a message that would never come. The bridge lights flickered as another explosion rocked the ship. Through the main view screen, HFY could see the lead Vorthack dreadnought approaching, its weapon systems charging for what would surely be the killing blow. The massive vessel was scarred and ancient, its hull decorated with the preserved corpses of enemy commanders from countless battles. "Message sent, sir," the communications officer reported, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. "Zehai notet gavili." At least they had tried. At least someone in the galaxy would know that the Vorthack had returned in force, that the peace they had all enjoyed for the past century was about to end in blood and fire. The Vorthack dreadnought fired. The beam of concentrated energy should have vaporized the Harmony's dream instantly, but something impossible happened instead. The weapon's discharge struck an invisible barrier surrounding HFY's ship, dispersing harmlessly into space in a shower of sparks and light. Every being on the bridge stared in stunned silence at the tactical display. The Vorthack weapons were firing continuously now, but none of their attacks were penetrating the mysterious shield that had appeared around them. "Commander," Silweth whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. "Look at the long-range sensors." HFY activated the display and felt his heart skip a beat. Emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system was a fleet unlike anything in the galactic databases. The ships were massive, angular things that seemed to devour light itself. Their hulls were dark as the void between stars, marked only by strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Unknown vessels. This is Commander HFY of the Galactic Peacekeeping Union." He broadcast on all frequencies. "Please identify yourselves." The response came in a language that no universal translator could decipher, harsh and guttural sounds that seemed to carry weight beyond mere words. But then, impossibly, the meaning became clear in HFY's mind, as if the thoughts themselves were being transmitted directly into his consciousness. "This is Admiral Sarachun of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. We received your distress call. Stand down and prepare for rescue operations." The name meant nothing to HFY, nor did the species designation. Terran was not in any galactic database he knew of. But as he watched the unknown fleet advance on the Vorthack forces, he felt something he had not experienced in cycles: hope. The lead ship in the Terran formation was larger than a Vorthack dreadnought, its hull bristling with weapon systems that defied easy classification. As it closed the distance to the enemy fleet, its weapons began to charge with an energy signature that made HFY's instruments scream warnings. "All Vorthack vessels, this is Admiral Chun," the alien voice announced across all frequencies. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." The Vorthack response was swift and predictable. The entire enemy fleet opened fire on the approaching Terran vessels, their combined firepower enough to sterilize a planet's surface. The weapon's discharge lit up space like a miniature star, the energy output so intense that HFY had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, the Terran fleet remained untouched. "Warning ignored," Admiral Chen announced, her voice carrying a cold finality that made HFY's blood freeze. "Weapons free. Show them what happens when they threaten the innocent." What followed could barely be called a battle. The Terran ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons carving through Vorthack armor like it was made of paper. Ships that had terrorized entire sectors were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. The massive Vorthack dreadnought that had been preparing to execute HFY found itself surrounded by smaller Terran vessels that danced around its weapons fire like they were playing some deadly game. The dreadnought's destruction was almost artistic in its precision. The Terran ships fired in perfect synchronization, their weapons creating a web of energy that sliced the massive vessel into perfectly equal sections. The explosion that followed was contained within some kind of field, preventing debris from threatening nearby ships. In less than 10 minutes, an entire Vorthack raiding fleet had been completely annihilated. As HFY watched in stunned silence, one of the smaller Terran vessels approached the Harmony's dream. Its design was sleek and predatory, like something evolved for hunting in the deep void. A communication request appeared on his console. "Commander HFY, this is Captain Rodriguez of the TCS Retribution. We're going to dock with your vessel and provide medical assistance to your crew. Our scans indicate you have multiple casualties." "Captain Rodriguez," HFY replied, his voice shaking with emotion. We owe you our lives. But I must ask, what are Terrans? Your species is unknown to our databases." There was a pause before the response came, and Zephi thought he could hear something like grim amusement in the alien's voice. "We're humans, Commander, and we're from a little planet called Earth. Most of the galaxy hasn't heard of us yet, but that's about to change." As the Terran ship docked with his vessel, and strange but clearly friendly beings began boarding to assist his crew, Zephi realized that this day would be remembered as a turning point in galactic history. The Vorthack had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, and the consequences would ripple across the stars for generations to come. The rescue had been the easy part. What came next would reshape the galaxy forever.